I want to apologize because I am about to spoil the entire Void Century flashback for you. Because with the reveal that Davy Jones was the former king of the world, and with the reveal that Emu is capable of Dami-reversing seemingly anyone, literally the entire plot of the Void Century War falls into place. I'm going to tell you right now how Emu turned the 20 kings against the Ancient Kingdom, why the Davy clan specifically is so hated by the Celestial Dragons, the truth about how the ancient weapons were used by both sides, why Vegapunk couldn't understand who was actually right or wrong in the conflict, the actual relationship between Joyboy and Davy Jones, and why Lily was on the wrong side initially but changed sides in the end. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then stop listening now. But if you do want to hear the full story of the Void Century early, then strap in because we're going to be breaking down everything. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe. But first, if you want to use a high quality VPN for less than $3 a month, Surfshark is offering that deal to my viewers right now. Surfshark VPN is the sponsor for this video, and in case you don't know what VPNs are, most people are using VPNs when they are online nowadays, as it's a necessity to make sure that your data is not stolen. But the best part is that VPNs also allow you to change your location online to anywhere that you want on the globe. Let me tell you, that gives you so much more access to so many movies, TV shows, and live events that are all streaming for free just in other countries. For example, there are anime that are free on Netflix for streaming, but only in Japan. But with Surfshark, you can just change your location online to Japan and get free access with a click of a button. And if VPNs sound too good to be true, that's because most of them are pretty expensive. Most of them cost about $15 a month. But Surfshark is a world-class, award-winning VPN that is offering my viewers a deal for less than $3 a month. And you can keep Surfshark at that price for up to 2 years. And on top of that, if you follow my link, you get an extra 4 months free of Surfshark VPN. All you have to do is go to surfshark.com/Morge or use code Morge at checkout to get your Surfshark deal today for less than $3 a month and 4 extra months free. Just follow the link or you can scan the QR code below. So that aside, to begin with, Davy Jones was the king of the Ancient Kingdom. In general, all D-Tribe members so far seem to be from the Ancient Kingdom, and more importantly, the messages of the poneglyphs are passing down the will of D from the Void Century, suggesting it's the will of the King Davy of the Ancient Kingdom being passed down. Rox's claim that Davy Jones was the king of the entire world in general also does make sense, as the Ancient Kingdom was established to be far more powerful than all the other kingdoms. As such, the king of the Ancient Kingdom would essentially have been the king of the world, though all signs of course point to Davy Jones not having tried to rule everyone like a dictator like Emu, though we will delve into that later. This also explains why Emu is arch enemies with Davy Jones, as Davy was the previous king before Emu, against whom Emu led the coalition of 20 kingdoms to overthrow. And it also explains why Emu so desperately wants to pretend Davy Jones was never a king, as Emu wants to erase the legacy of the king he overthrew. This also explains why the Celestial Dragons have such vehement hate for the Davy clan in particular, as the Celestial Dragons are all descendants of the original 20 kings who fought against the Ancient Kingdom. And so Davy Jones, the king of the Ancient Kingdom, would have been their arch enemy as well. And finally, it's just so perfectly One Piece for Oda to reveal that Blackbeard and his father Rox, the absolutely most classically piratey pirates that we've ever had in One Piece, are in fact descended from royalty, and that they should by all rights have been kings of the world today. Because the most recurring message in One Piece is how the difference between who is a king and who is a pirate all simply comes down to who is able to claim power. Over and over, arc after arc, we're shown that a king one day can fall to becoming a pirate the next, just as a pirate one day can rise up and declare themselves a king the next. None of the labels matter. No one is inherently a king or inherently a pirate. It's just about what the victor is able to call themselves and what they're able to label the loser. The once proud king, Davy Jones, fell to Emu, who labeled the Davy line a bunch of criminal pirates. But if Rox or Blackbeard were able to overthrow Emu today, then they would overnight go from being pirate scum back to being noble royalty. Now, with the realization that Davy Jones was in fact the king of the Ancient Kingdom, the entire story of what happened in the Void Century becomes crystal clear, because it is in fact the same exact story Oda has played out island after island, arc after arc. To understand what I mean, it must first be understood that there are 4 character types that make up every single major island storyline in One Piece: the Usurper, the Good King, the Warrior Hero, and the Princess. And with these 4 character archetypes, Oda essentially plays out the same plot over and over. Now, with the reveal of Davy Jones as the king, we now have all 4 character types of the Void Century conflict: Emu, Davy Jones, Joyboy, and Lily. I broke down these 4 character types in greater detail in this video, but let me quickly recap here. To start with, in every conflict we have the Usurper, aka the villain who is either attempting to take over the land, such as Wapol, Crocodile, or Hordy, or this figure has succeeded in taking over the land some years ago and now needs to be defeated, such as Arlong, Enel, Doflamingo, or Kaido. But if the Usurper is the evil figure who is either A, trying to take over the land and ruin it, or B, has already taken over the land and turned it into a dystopia, well then the evil actions of the Usurper only have meaning if the land was previously prosperous and happy, ruled by a good king. That is where the second archetype, the Good King, comes in. The leader under whom the island is actually prosperous. Cobra, Riku, Gonfall, Dalton, and so on are the leaders that represent the ideal version of what the land should be. When they were in charge, things were generally good until the Usurper came along, and the conflict began. But the Good King never stands against the Usurper alone. That's why we also always have to have the warrior hero. This character is essentially the kingdom's strongest champion, and even though they do ultimately have to fail to defeat the Usurper so that then Luffy is allowed to come along and defeat the Usurper instead, this warrior hero is still often really effective themselves. While on the lower end of the spectrum you have characters like Fukaboshi who never really have a chance, or Koza who f***ed up and straight up fought on the wrong side till he realized he's supposed to be fighting Crocodile at the very end, there are generally a lot of warrior heroes who genuinely put up great showings. Kyros was a worthy champion of Dressrosa even if he wasn't quite Doflamingo's level. Wiper very nearly killed Enel himself until Enel miraculously cheated death by restarting his own heart, and Odin outright defeated the Usurper and had him on the ropes until Kaido's side was forced to cheat to take out Odin. And then finally we have the Princess. The Princess is often the emotional centerpiece of the conflict, designed to be the character that we, the reader, can emotionally connect to pull at our heartstrings. See Vivi, Rebecca, Shirahoshi, etc. Even though her role is not to win fights, this character is usually pivotal to the plot, and tends to be given a role that changes the conflict dramatically, and usually leads to the eventual defeat of the Usurper. Now that we have an understanding of the 4 archetypes, holy shit, literally everything that happened in the Void Century immediately clicks, because we have a long history of how exactly these archetypes always play out in One Piece that fits perfectly with what we know of the Void Century so far, because it is the exact same plot Oda has repeated over and over throughout the story. It's just that this time, instead of it being the conflict of a single island, it is now the conflict of the entire world. 1,000 years ago, the Ancient Kingdom was the predominant superpower of the world, a kingdom far greater, far more advanced, and far more prosperous than all other kingdoms. Emu was of course the evil usurper in this story. He led 19 other kingdoms of smaller nations to rise up and take down the Ancient Kingdom. And after that, Emu made himself the king of the world and turned it into the authoritarian dystopia that we have today. Joyboy was of course the legendary warrior hero of this story that fought against the usurper Emu and his faction. And based on Emu's fear of Joyboy to this day, I wouldn't be surprised if Joyboy even managed to get the better of Emu, and Emu had to rely on trickery and cheap tactics to defeat him, as we've seen is often the case with the usurper versus the warrior hero. And then of course we have Lily, the princess. Lily was not technically the princess of the Ancient Kingdom itself as far as we know, but she seems to be the one set to play the narrative role of the princess for the Void Century conflict in general, in that Lily seems to be at the dramatic center of the Void Century War, with clear ties to Emu and Joyboy. Lily's story suggests that she is the one who realized that what was happening in the war against the Ancient Kingdom was wrong, and Lily is the one who took a moral stand against it by turning against Emu and the other kings. And most importantly, Lily is the one who enacts the single most crucial role that the princess of every storyline always plays. Lily is the one who calls for help. In every island storyline in One Piece, the biggest impact that the princess has is that while she herself cannot fight, she is the one who brings the Straw Hats and other allies into the fold. Even though the Good King and even the warrior hero will ultimately always fall to the usurper, it's thanks to the princess that the cry for help can reach those who can defeat the usurper and resolve the conflict. It is the princess's voice that is always responsible for saving the day by reaching the ears of those who can be the true heroes of the story. And in this vein, even though it took place over 800 years ago, that is exactly the role that Lily plays in the Void Century War. Lily's greatest contribution is that she sends out the poneglyphs to the world. she is the one who spreads the message of the Ancient Kingdom and the Will of D out to the generations that will come in the future. It is thanks to Lily that the voices of the Ancient Kingdom are passed on to the warriors of today, most importantly the Straw Hats, who will one day rise up and defeat the usurper. So we have the usurper, the warrior hero, the princess, and finally, with this last revelation that Davy Jones was once the true king, we now know how Emu actually took over. Because here is the signature move that Oda loves to use when he has the usurper of every story take over. The usurper uses a special power to falsely frame the good king. Think of the biggest story arcs in One Piece where an island is taken over by a usurper. Alabasta. King Cobra was a good king, beloved by his people, but Crocodile slowly framed him over time for being responsible for the drought of Alabasta. And the final finishing touch was using the Mane Mane no Mi to deceive the people of Alabasta into believing that Cobra was evil, so that they would all turn against him. Dressrosa, same exact thing. King Riku was a good king, beloved by his people, but Doflamingo manipulated him to demand money from his people, and then framed Riku by using the Ito Ito no Mi to control Riku to attack the people of Dressrosa, deceiving the people of Dressrosa into believing that Riku was evil, so that they all turned against him and supported Doflamingo's rebellion against him. And just this last arc, Wano, again, Kazuki Sukiyaki, was a good king, with the people of Wano all loyal to the Kazuki clan. And then Oda actually double-dipped in his same playbook from Alabasta by just using the Mane Mane no Mi again, so that Orochi could deceive the people of Wano, this time making them believe that Sukiyaki had died and therefore Orochi should now be in charge. And after this, Orochi framed Oden as a fool that turned the people of Wano against the Kazuki in general. Oda loves making it so that the usurper's takeover hinges on manipulation of the truth, almost always by the usurper using a special power to falsely portray the good king as something he is not. Why? Because One Piece is a story that is largely about the power of controlling the narrative, the power of propaganda, and who determines the truth. If you can feed people a false narrative about who is good and who is evil, the world is yours. That has always been One Piece's messaging from the beginning of the series, and that's why it is the key to the conflict that started it all, the Void Century War. But before we get into it, the bosses are here. This month you can get our brand new collection, the Boss Poster Collection. 15 dynamically illustrated One Piece villains, 15 hidden iconic moments. Get Cunning Crocodile with a hidden Straw Hat Alabasta send-off. Get Vicious Rob Lucci with a hidden Jet Gatling, or Yonko Blackbeard with a hidden Crossroads of Fate, and many, many more. And this month, you can buy 2 posters and get any 2 posters free with the deal auto-applied at checkout. And here is the big news. If you get the buy 2 get 2 free deal, you also get a 3rd free bonus exclusive poster where you get to choose either Emu or Rocks. You can also pick up the entire collection at a massive bundle discount and get both Emu and Rocks for free. And to add a little extra, we are offering free worldwide shipping on all orders. Both Emu and Rocks are only available this month, and after this month, they'll never be available ever again. So get them before they go. And finally, if you want a shot at getting this entire collection for free, then just give us a follow on our brand new Instagram page, One Dream Studio. Everyone who follows our page is immediately entered into a giveaway where the winner will get the entire collection for free, so go follow us on Instagram right now. The winner will be announced on Monday, November 24th. Link in the description below. Because where does this bring us back to? What happened with Davy Jones? What happened with the king of the Ancient Kingdom that allowed Emu to usurp him? Oda showed us already. He showed his full hand right here, right in front of us. There is no secret anymore. Dami Reversi. It's so simple. It's the exact same thing that we've seen over and over. Why did the 20 Kingdoms suddenly decide to attack the Ancient Kingdom? The trigger was when Emu used Dami Reversi to make Davy Jones, the king of the Ancient Kingdom, attack the weaker nations. The mighty ancient weapons that the Ancient Kingdom had were suddenly abused as an act of war upon the weaker nations. This is why Vegapunk genuinely didn't know who was in the right in the Void Century War. All historical record would show that the Ancient Kingdom did in fact commit the first assault. As such, even though the world government that overthrew it clearly became an evil tyrannical empire, the conflict itself would not have been black and white. And to really understand how absolutely certain it is that this is what happened, that Emu Dami Reversi Davy Jones, I want you to look at Dressrosa, because Dressrosa is Oda basically being as absurdly on the nose as possible. Dressrosa was the arc Oda wrote that was meant to be a literal microcosm of the world in general. Like seriously, he even says this island is supposed to be a microcosm of the world in general. Dressrosa seems like a utopia, but it hides dark secrets of what its ruler does to those who disobey, just like the world government. Dressrosa is run by a celestial dragon, essentially the devil himself, who believes he is God, just like Emu, the ultimate celestial dragon, runs the world as the devil himself, who believes that he is God. Doflamingo took over from the previous king in one master stroke, with the people of Dressrosa all supporting him, just as Emu took over from the previous king in one master stroke, with the people of all other nations in the world supporting him. Doflamingo erased the true history of what happened that night through Sugar's abilities, just as Emu erased the entire century of conflict through some yet-to-be-explained method. And what did Doflamingo do to turn everyone against Riku? Doflamingo took control of Riku and forced him to attack people he didn't want to attack. The parallel is so absurdly blatant, it's the exact same shit as Emu's ability. Emu Dami Reversi Davy Jones to attack the other nations. Riku was turned into public enemy number 1 of Dressrosa overnight, just as Davy Jones and the Ancient Kingdom became public enemy number 1 of the world overnight. And who then rose up as the hero in everyone's time of need to save the day? The one they would all embrace as their new king who would save them from the tyrannical old one. Doflamingo and Emu respectively, of course. And you know how we know this parallel is definitely true and not just a possibility? Because yet again, Oda showed his full hand in Dressrosa. The hatred for King Riku runs deep in Dressrosa because of what they believe he did. But the hatred runs deep not just for Riku, but for his whole clan, all of his descendants. The Riku family name is absolutely despised, as we see with a young Rebecca stepping out into a coliseum of everyone chanting their hate for the Riku clan. Does this seem familiar? Let's put 2 and 2 together. Why is it that the Celestial Dragons hate the Davy clan so much? The Celestial Dragons have a particularly scathing hate for the Davy clan that is way more than the other D-Tribe members, because 800 years ago, Davy Jones suddenly attacked and laid waste to the 20 kingdoms. And the Celestial Dragons today are all descendants of the kings of those 20 kingdoms. So the history that they've learned is that one day, the king of the Ancient Kingdom suddenly began using his weapons of mass destruction, the ancient weapons, to attack their ancestors. They've grown up being taught that Davy Jones was the ultimate evil king and the Davy clan are his evil lineage. Just as the people of Dressrosa grew up being taught that Riku was the ultimate evil king and the Riku clan is his evil lineage. Now you might say, Morge, if Emu was already able to Dami Reversi Davy Jones, then wouldn't the war have been won right there? Didn't Emu already have control? No, because there was of course the one factor that was outside Emu's control, Joyboy and his coalition. That is who the war really became against. Joyboy and his coalition likely knew the truth. Joyboy was likely a close friend of Davy Jones, and so, as Vegapunk explained, the war really became about trying to defeat Joyboy and his faction. And that's why it's explained that it's only after Joyboy fell that the Ancient Kingdom fell. Emu Dami Reversing Davy Jones also explains the use of the ancient weapons during the war. We know that the Ancient Kingdom originally had the ancient weapons, but then it seems like the weapons were later used recklessly over and over again nearly 200 times to flood the entire world, likely genociding countless civilizations. The Ancient Kingdom's faction, aka Joyboy's faction, would obviously never do this. This evil is clearly Emu's work, and it's implied multiple times that Emu wants to finish the job that he started of flooding the world. It all only makes sense if Emu was somehow able to get his hands on the ancient weapons, and again, it clicks into place now that we know Emu likely used Dami Reversi. Because as soon as Emu had control of Davy Jones, he had control over the ancient weapons. Emu forced the Ancient Kingdom to begin firing its weapons, likely wiping out many civilizations. Emu then used this as a rallying cry to bring the other 20 kings to his side to fight against the Ancient Kingdom in the war, as now Joyboy and his coalition still had to be defeated. But now Emu secretly had control over the ancient weapons. Either he had Davy Jones continue to fire them, or Emu killed Davy Jones and straight up took the ancient weapons and secretly fired them himself as the war continued. He kept firing them until the sea was flooded over, but it seems like he ran out of ammo right towards the end. which is of course why the job isn't done yet according to him and why he needs Vegapunk's Mother Flames today. Now after Joyboy was defeated, all hope seemed lost, except luckily there was Lily, the princess of the storyline. She may initially have been manipulated by Emu, but she also seems to have a bond with Joyboy, as she was able to learn the truth and enact Joyboy's will, as her final action was to set in motion the fall of Emu's demise by sending the poneglyphs out into the world, so that one day in the future, a new rebellion could rise up and dethrone Emu. This is in fact a direct mirror to Wano's storyline, wherein the good king was dethroned by the usurper, the warrior hero returned with his coalition to fight the usurper, the warrior hero was defeated through trickery, but even though the land then fell to the usurper, hope was not lost, as the princess was able to send a message to the future to ensure that a rebellion takes place in the future that will ultimately dethrone the usurper. So just like that, we have the full story of the Void Century flashback. Davy Jones, a good king of the most powerful nation in the world, essentially the king of the world, was framed through Dami Reversi by Emu to commit terrible actions. This led to an alliance being formed to defeat Davy Jones and the Ancient Kingdom. The champion of the Ancient Kingdom, Joyboy, fought against the alliance till even he finally fell. But the one who learned the truth, Lily, took Joyboy's side in the end, and sent out a message to the future that would one day sow the seeds of rebellion to bring the world out of the darkness it had fallen into, and fulfill the will of the first king, the will of Davy. So let me know if you believe this is what happened in the Void Century, and if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear the details of how Joyboy vs. Emu likely played out, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below. And make sure to get your amazing deal for Surfshark VPN for less than $3 a month and an extra 4 months free at surfshark.com/Morge, or use code Morge at checkout, link in the description below, or just hit the QR code.